Hello, everyone. It's Conversations About Hearing, and my today's guest, my dearest friend from Sweden, Andreas Thulin, uh, almost the similar surname as mine. Andreas is Master of Science in Audiology. He got his audiology degree from University of Gothenburg, and since 2016, he's clinical audiologist, and since 2018, the lecturer at the University of Gothenburg. Since 2020, Andreas has been focused on hearing loss prevention and started developing a hearing loss prevention program. I've seen an amazing presentation of Andreas' program at European Congress. I was absolutely inspired with the type of presentation and in the prevention program itself. So that's why I invited Andreas for today's conversation. Hello, Andreas. Thank you for accepting my invitation.
Hi, and thank you so much for having me.
Andres, first of all, the traditional question, could you please shortly describe audiology system in Sweden about audiology education, services for hearing impaired children and adults, cochlear implantation, amplification, all what you want to tell us?
Sure. I mean, it works differently throughout the world, so that's a very valid question. Well, to become an audiologist in Sweden, firstly, you need to attend 3 years of university education to get your bachelor's degree. And after that, you can apply for a license to be permitted to work clinically. In Sweden, audiologists are a protected profession, which means that you can't call yourself an audiologist unless you have a license to practice, basically. And once you have the license, you can pretty much do most things an audiologist do, such as, diagnostics and fittings and rehabilitation, with a couple of restrictions, because often general audiologists don't have any medical responsibilities, which means that we don't, diagnose or prescribe medication or remove earwax, for example. In my county, at least, that this falls to the ENT doctors, which we need to contact while we're, meeting the patient, basically. And also the system works kind of differently depending on which region you live in Sweden. On which county you belong to, it differs how hearing care is structured, where some counties choose to have privatized hearing care and some leave it up to the county healthcare. But regardless of where you go, since Sweden has universal healthcare, most of our services are free-ish. The patient pays a small charge of around $10 or 100 Swedish crowns for the visit. And depending on the county, hearing aids are more or less expensive. But most counties at least offer free hearing aids in some way or another. In some counties, you can get the most advanced hearing aids for free, but if you want those more advanced hearing aids, you'll have to pay the difference from the ones they're offering for free. And the same system applies to cochlear implants and other surgical measures. The patient pays a fraction of the price, and even though cochlear implants can cost up to tens of thousands of dollars, the patient only pays a small fee, which I think is amazing. It's a great system. And I mean, of course, we do also have privatized healthcare, which you can resort to if you want to, if you find the waiting lists are too long or whatever. But then you'll have to pay for everything yourself.
Andres, tell us about yourself, about your education, about your career in audiology, hobbies, lifestyle.
Yeah. You did kind of a good summary of my career in the beginning of this interview, but sure. And I attended the 3-year audiologist program, just as you said, starting in 2013. And before that, I was studying Swedish Sign Language, and I was studying to become an interpreter. But as the education went on, it's a 4-year program. I kind of felt that, interpreter role and profession wasn't really for me because of, the working hours, and you don't always get to decide which interpreter missions you go to. So I found that wasn't really for me. So I figured I wanted to work with people and helping them. And during the sign language program, I had, met a lot of people with hearing loss. So I decided to apply to the audiologist program. And it was, you know, I really found it super interesting, mixing medical and psychology and, the technical part of it all. And I had a great time during the education, and I graduated in 2016. And after that, I worked clinically for 4 years at a department who specialized in in-depth rehabilitation with people who, have bigger needs than the usual audiologist patient. And this could be, people with profound hearing loss or severe tinnitus or CI patients, those kind of patients. And then in 2018, I got invited to, be a part of the teacher group at the audiologist program, and I was just incredibly humbled and happy for the opportunity. I love lecturing and, being the being the center of attention, I guess. I've been a musician since I was 7 years old, so the whole being on stage thing is something that I really love. And getting the opportunity to teach future audiologists sounded like really a great time. So since 2018, I've been increasing my teaching hours, bit by bit, and right now it's at 80% of what I do with my working time. And then beyond my work, like you said, I've been spending the last couple of years getting my master's in audiology, which I received this spring, and I've also managed to do some research in hearing loss prevention with great colleagues and amazing people, which will I assume we'll get into that a little bit later. And in my spare time or free time, I play a lot of music. I play disc golf. I climb, and hang out with friends like you do, I guess.
Sometimes I think about you, sometimes I think about us sometimes. That night in the parking lot, big dreams, but I hope they're not. you give me some time to figure it out? Some time is to find a way to write this down. Some time to figure it out. Give me some time. I know this is lost. It might seem hopeless, but I figured we could try to find a way. What do you say? What do you say? What do you say? What do you say? So what do you say? What do you say? What do you say? What do you say? So what do you say? 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 So what do you say?
Yeah, Andreas, I think you would agree with me that you have quite an unusual appearance for a doctor or for an audiologist, and it's cool. It's really cool. But how do your patients react on that when they see you for the first time in the clinic or in the university?
Yeah, I really love this question. I get this one a lot, and I love just love answering it because the thing is, I love being someone who can refute and disprove stereotypes and go against the grain a little bit. And I'm aware that having neck and throat tattoos and full sleeves can make people perceive me as a hooligan or a vandal or whatever. But more often than not, as soon as they hear me speak and they understand how much I care and my professionality, they're very quick to change their minds. And if I'm able to be a person that can show that image and appearance don't have to be indicative of who I am, and personality and professionalism in a positive way, that's great. But then again, I'm not gonna lie, there's been a lot of times when I go to pick up a patient at the waiting room, and they're I'm met with big eyes, and they're really surprised to see someone who looks like me working there.
Yeah. To be honest, I was impressed by your hearing loss prevention program, and we will talk about it today a bit later. But the first thing I want to ask you about what and why to prevent regarding the hearing loss. Is it really possible and effective? Because not any hearing loss is preventable.
Yeah, that's very true, and thank you. I've received a lot of praise for my presentation and my way to communicate my findings and research and stuff. So I'm very thankful for people perceiving it in such a positive way. And to the question, starting with the why, it's it's really self-explanatory why we wish to prevent people from being afflicted by hearing loss. And like you said, not all hearing loss is preventable, but the WHO, the World Health Organization, sorry, estimate that around 60% of all hearing loss is considered to be preventable, and all the research done in the field basically points in the same directions, that people suffering from hearing loss are more likely to have worse psychosocial situations than those without. And hearing loss can, as can lead to social isolation, depression, anxiety, fatigue, and I can go on. But and not even mentioning later research which has found correlations between unrehabilitated hearing loss and increased risk for being affected by dementia. So it's really it's a thing that why prevent hearing loss? Because not doing it has the possibility of lowering the quality of life for basically an entire generation of individuals. And the how, it's I guess it's something we're still trying to figure out. I mean, with today's healthcare demands and listening habits, our as researchers need to pull together to find the best way to try to prevent hearing loss in as an effective way as possible. And until sufficient research is available, we can't say whether or not it's possible and or effective. But we still need to try. I mean, even if we don't have a cure for cancer and it hasn't been possible to create one yet, we're still trying for a better life for as many as possible.
If we talk about noise-induced hearing loss, does noise really as matter as thought? Do, for example, headphones as dangerous for our hearing as everybody thinks?
I mean, of course, noise matters. I mean, it's a kind of a rhetorical questions, but I mean, it depends on kind of what you mean with noise, how you talk about noise. The past generation was very focused on noise in the workplace and creating innovative solutions for, to prevent work noise damage. And in a lot of places, like for instance in Sweden, we have a lot of rules and laws which has been passed to, make sure employers have a hearing safe environment for their employees. But as the last couple of decades, technology has made incredible process, and then this has resulted in another type of noise, leisure noise, has made its way into our societies, and the availability of mobile phones is mind-boggling. It's everybody's got a phone nowadays. When I was at the meeting in Geneva, Peter Mulas, he's an audio and acoustic consultant. He told us that there are over 7 billion mobile phones in the world, and 70% of them are in low and middle income countries, which is like which means that the availability of personal devices are huge, and people simply, I guess people simply have a hard time knowing how to listen safely with AirPods or headphones.
So, which age and sex groups are at the highest risk of noise-induced hearing loss? What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, generally, we're focused right now on younger individuals, trying to, set a good example early in their lives so they can think hearing healthy throughout their lives. And there are a couple of studies like the Apple Hearing Study, which is just a huge study in the US. Tells us there's a negative correlation between listening and age, which means that younger people are more likely to listen for longer periods of time. And in contrast, the study, because your question also brought up gender, but the study shows no significant difference in respect to gender. They haven't found. But if you look at studies focused on health literacy, which is something that is a part of a lot of my presentations, and health literacy being the ability to find, understand, and adapt hearing related decisions and actions, you could maybe conclude that younger men are most at risk. I mean, I remember me, and I'm sure you remember you as an 18-year-old. I didn't think I needed hearing protection. I was basically immortal, with not very my risk habits were a lot different than how they are today. And health literacy also has a positive correlation with education level, which means that more highly educated individuals are more likely to think and act on health advice. And the World Health Organization released, the World Report on Hearing in 2017 and 2021, where they, underline the age group 12 to 34, where an estimated billion individuals will have developed a hearing loss in 2050 because of unhealthy listening habits, which is really, the group we're trying to, inspire and locate and try to focus on right now.
Yeah, but why society still isn't aware about noise-induced hearing loss? There are so many social advertising about it, and I know that smartphones usually warn when you increase the volume too much. But what's the
Yeah.
problem in awareness?
Yeah, that's that's a great observation. And I think we as a society are aware. Basically, I mean, most people know that, loud noise can damage the hearing. And we are aware, and that's why there is advertising and, tools like the warnings that you mentioned. But it's really hard to encourage change at the individual level if the person isn't, familiar with the potential dangers of that behavior. Like if you're 18 years old and you attend a concert, then maybe you know that you can damage your hearing by not wearing earplugs, but you don't really know about the consequences. Like what could this mean for me if I do damage my hearing? And also, a lot of people are aware of the dangers, but they still choose to act unhealthy hearing wise. With some reasons in studies include perceived barriers towards hearing protection, like if I use earplugs, then the music won't sound as good. like it's a less enjoyable listening experience. And another reason is that it's perceived as socially undesirable. Like, people will think less of me if I use hearing protection, which is just, it's really strange to me. And in our research, we actually developed and evaluated an online hearing loss prevention program, which aims to, increase knowledge and improve listening habits in the participants in the course or program.
Yes. So about your program, what your program looks like?
Yes. Our program, which is it's called Hörselhälsa in Swedish, or hearing health, is it's a 4-week program, each week with a different theme. So we start with the basics. The first week is about anatomy and physiology and pathology of the human hearing system, and the second week is about sound and noise. The third is about hearing symptoms like tinnitus and hyperacusis, and in the final week we go through different guidelines and rules in our Swedish society, like how loud is it allowed to be in my bedroom at night, and how loud is it allowed to be when I visit a restaurant or a bar, or those kind of questions. And finally, we give the participants a lot of tips how they can think and act to preserve their hearing for as long as possible. And right now, the program Hearing Health is meant and created and developed for a broad audience, regardless of how old you are, or if you have a hearing loss or not. Right now, it's on a platform called 1177, which is Sweden's national healthcare platform. Everybody knows it, and you have contact with your primary physicians on it. But our final goal is to have it available nationwide. So right now, it's since it's on 1177, it's limited to only the county of Västra Götaland, where the program was developed. But several other counties have already contacted us, knowing of the program and wanting to include hearing health into their county as well, which is great.
Yeah.
In our modern day, navigating sounds.
What's up, Croatia?
Oh my God! I've just begun talking here. Could you just?
Well, what do you think I'm here? Once again, I've come to save the day from your boring-ass presentation. I mean, look at that one. She's basically asleep already.
Well, what makes you think you would do a better job?
Well, for one, I am taller than you.
Well, you're on video. And I also don't think necessarily that height is any indication of how
And I'm a part of the online hearing loss prevention program. And being the face of hearing health and the person that program participants actually see, wouldn't you say that I'm better suited to tell these lovely people about the program?
Well,
But you just sit down and enjoy your coffee, okay? I got this.
Okay.
Right. As Tiny Thulin here began to explain, our listening habits have changed.
In our audiology practices, prevention often takes a backseat role, while tech application dominates the business. And even though being a vital part of our practice, it's important to remember that we also possess the knowledge and tools to be able to help people even before the damage has been done. With today's healthcare demands, these opportunities cannot be overlooked. For you, for me, and for a better hearing health for all. Thank you.
You investigated your hearing loss prevention program primarily for people who already have hearing loss, according to your article that I read. Isn't it more reasonable to implement it among normal hearing people first?
Well, yeah. Yes and no. We included both groups, like individuals with hearing loss and without hearing loss, because we wanted to see and evaluate the program's ability to affect change in both groups. And previous research has shown that individuals with hearing loss are more likely to listen both louder and for longer periods of time than individuals without hearing loss, which is why we wanted to include both groups to be able to compare the two. And also, I feel this is a common question and discussion among researchers and people involved in the world of audiology, where to start, where to implement the and personally, I feel that of course you have to prioritize it like in some way, but implementing hearing conservation information all through society simultaneously might also be a way. Of course, it's a question of resources, and but wasting time talking about if we should, prioritize middle school first, or if we should focus on music school curriculums, seems to me to be like kind of a waste of time. Maybe instead we should, identify where the information is needed and develop materials which is suited for every instance and every place in society. Of course, this is all personal reflection, and the answer is probably much more complicated than that.
So probably hearing impaired people are more motivated than normal hearing people.
Yeah, sure, maybe. I mean, people who experience hearing symptoms are more likely to enroll in like our course, for example, because they perceive their, if they have developed tinnitus or if they experience hearing loss, then they're more motivated, and it becomes like a cue to action for them to, take action and, do something about it.
Don't you think that the modern society, especially young people, demand a much more attractive ways of prevention than classical ones like posters in supermarkets or brochures, TV programs? What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great point. Like, the flow of information today is very different than it was, 30 years ago or whatever. The flow of information has completely changed, and we're used to being drowned in copious amounts of information every hour of every day. And if there's I mean, I can just look to myself. I mean, there's, as soon as nothing is happening, I'm on my phone, or I'm watching some video, or you know um and I think, like, the information we're trying to put out needs to reflect the society that we live in. Posters are, yeah, I think they're kind of still current, since posters can be placed wherever people go. But to try and get individuals who's not interested to attend, lectures or read brochures, this is a, waste of energy and material, in my opinion, unless you can do it naturally. In school curriculums, for example, in music curriculums, where you can really custom make the information for the musicians attending the course, and trying to convey the message that this is why you need to care for your hearing, because this is your future profession. You're going to be playing music for a long time, and then you need to preserve your hearing to be able to practice music throughout your life. But especially public lectures, I feel, are a tough sell. um, but still, it's information that's needed, and no matter how attractive ways we can think of how to deliver the message, people still need to be susceptible to the information. You can't change someone who doesn't want to be changed, frankly put, basically.
Yeah. Andreas, I know that you have presented your program in a World Health Organization office. Tell us about this experience.
Oh yeah, it was absolutely amazing. I mean, just getting the opportunity to travel to the headquarters in Geneva was incredibly humbling and exciting, and I felt lightheaded when I got the invite. And it's really, it felt really big for me, because I'm just starting out my academic path, and doing research and that kind of thing. So just to be considered to be in this group of really, you know these experts that I saw people who I've only read papers of, and they've written books whose which I used in my job as teaching and stuff. So it was just incredible experience. And the purpose of the consultation was to make listening safe, which is basically hearing loss prevention, and what my research is about, and more. And they invited experts from all over the world, and me to attend. So I got to make a lot of new acquaintances. I learned a lot, and to see some, like I said, see my audiology idols in action. um, a lot of the time was spent in workshops and panels, where we try to find concrete suggestions and on steps which could lead to a more safe listening, and ways to spread information globally. And not to mention the gorgeous views of Switzerland. It's a beautiful country. So it was just an amazing trip, really.
So Andreas, thank you so much for this conversation. You are amazing. I wish you all the best. I wish you what you wish for yourself. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.